Hi guys, and welcome back to another Trafford Talk community podcast. And I'm glad to be joined with Ben Pearce. How you doing, mate?
Good, mate. How are you? It's been a mental day today. I feel like lockdown 2.0 or whatever you want to call this has just made everyone's lives a little bit more hectic than they were before. Like work, fan channel stuff, supporters, the fan base with debate and toxicness around everything that's going. I just feel like everyone is on one at the moment. Sort of a little bit crazy. So yeah, sorry that I'm slightly late.
Yeah, no, it's okay. I've been exactly the same. Trying to record podcast because I wasn't well last week,
Oh
sorry.
no.
So try to catch up with that because no one would want to hear my voice last week, that's for sure. But we're going to just wait just now for a couple of minutes. Hopefully, we'll get a couple of guys in, get them involved. But you're from All for United. How's that going anyway, mate? Is it going well?
Yeah, I mean, the last couple of months have been brilliant. I think that it got to a point where we had to. I'm just retweeting it for you, by the way, so sorry that I'm
Yeah.
not looking at the camera. It got to a point where we were just really being a viral meme account, and we were just like posting up virality clips, and we were posting up different bits and pieces about Manchester United, and sometimes being quite contentious, and sometimes not being as contentious. But we got to a point where I was like, look, I love making content. I'm a content creator. Like my job's within digital marketing. I work within sales as well. And I got to the point where it's like, right, we've got a brand that's got 100,000 people interested in it. What can we do to take those 100,000 people further and make them invest further into the brand? I've always worked in YouTube stuff. I've always worked within the YouTube community. I've been passionate about fans being able to access content. I think that's really, really important. And I also think it's really important that fans also have a voice. You know, you see fans on Talksport, you see fans on Sky Sports, you see fans like on bigger platforms than what you and I have got. But there's a selection process for that stuff. I want to take down the selection process. I want to say, fans, if you want to say something, come and say it. Don't care who you are. Don't care what your opinion is. I don't care if you're Saeed. I don't care who you are. If you want to say something, here's a platform with some followers. Say it. And I think that's worked really, really nicely recently. So yeah, everything's going great. Everything's looking great. Yeah, I'm really pleased. I just wish we were performing a little bit better than we currently are.
Yeah, it's quite hard to obviously talk about United just now, but um, myself and you were obviously going to go through the season so far and how it's went on with the community podcast because we missed one last week. So there's going to be a double upload this week, and the next one I'm going to be joined with United Henry, and we're going to discuss the season and going forward. So I'm going to just get into the first question, and it's a name on everyone's lips. Really, let's be honest, mate, the full time.
Mhm.
And I think you know who I'm going to say.
Harry Maguire, Mason Greenwood.
There's a lot of them. Yeah.
Yeah,
But actually, Paul Pogba, because
yeah.
when's his name not in the media? I mean, he's always involved in something. He's always speaking to the media. What's your thoughts on Pogba? What do you think we should do with him? And really, I just want to know, what are the problems that he's faced so far throughout the season? Because it's very hard to look at. And let's be honest, he's next to Bruno Fernandes, who I think is our best player, and he's not thriving off him. And he has come out to the media and said it's his hardest season so far. So I'd like to just hear your thoughts on it and reasons why he's struggling so hard. I can't get my head around it.
It's a tough one because I understand, appreciate, and respect anyone who can get in front of a camera and talk tactics and tell us why tactically Pogba just isn't working within this United team. I love that, and I love listening to it. And I suppose it's a bit like everything around the coronavirus vaccine right now, where there's sensationalized stuff on why you should and shouldn't take it. Like there's an opinion both sides of the field, and when you get into nitty gritty, it's great to hear from experts and people who know their stuff about the beautiful game of football as to why it's not working. But I think as a fan, we've got to look at this as a bit longer term than just this season. Personally, I think, unfortunately for Paul Pogba, he is a fantastic footballer. And I say unfortunately for Paul Pogba because he has to carry that burden on his shoulders. And at a club like Manchester United, where the expectation levels are so high, when you've got a beautiful, brilliant footballer who plays the game the way it should be, and that's, I mean, be able to distribute the ball. And there's nothing more beautiful in football than seeing a 40, 50-yard pass triggered from inside your own half out to the wing. Paul Pogba can do that. Like, Paul Pogba is fantastic. He is by far the best passer we have got in our team, and maybe one of the best passers of the ball we've seen at United since Paul Scholes, because he can really find a player with the outside, the inside, the toe of his boot. He's spectacular, and he also is fantastic at carrying the ball as well. So I think when it comes to Paul Pogba, he has these tendencies to be a world-class footballer. And us as United fans, as I was saying, when we set that expectation level so high, that's what we want to see. We want to see world-class football players reach their bar at our football club to help take us forward as a world-class team. So when you've got someone like Paul Pogba, who I do agree with, you can count his good, and I just say good performances on two hands in 4 years, that's a worry. Now, this isn't me talking about his off-the-field problems. This is me watching him. Everyone's got their own opinion when they watch someone play. If you turn off the commentary or you don't look at stats and you just watch a game of football, a bit like the boxing, you probably score it different. You probably have a different opinion. That's fine. My personal opinion is that Paul Pogba hasn't been consistent enough. Does that make him a bad player? No, it doesn't. Does that mean that Paul Pogba isn't a world-class player? Well, that's everyone's opinion. For me, when it comes to world-class footballers, it's about consistency. I don't see consistency from Paul Pogba. I didn't at Juventus. I also didn't, by the way. If we go back to youth football at Manchester United, Paul Pogba was very much a flair player who played in so many different positions. And I think people forget that. So I think what we've seen is a young lad with a lot of potential, a lot of flair, come through the United system, go somewhere else. The love stories brought us back together. And unfortunately, we've only seen the bits of flair and fantastic football from him in small intersections. We haven't seen enough from him over the 4 years for us to go, do you know what, Paul Pogba has to start every game. And I think the problem now is the pennies dropping, not just for the fans, but for the manager as well. I don't think Ollie fancies him as much as he likes Scott McTominay and Fred. And I think that's his downfall at the moment. It's the fact that we know, Robbie, that he's a fantastic footballer, but he just doesn't show it. And then he comes out and talks, which is, again, he just says stuff that he doesn't need to say.
I think it's absolutely crazy, the fact that he's coming out and speaking to the media about his performance. And really, I mean, he's been doing this since day one. See, I mean,
It's
I remember
consistent.
whenever I was a young boy, I can remember Pogba speaking to the media.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever he was trying to push a move away from United. But then you look at Sir Alex, and there was a kind of divide in the fan base, let's be real, whenever Paul Pogba was, I mean, whenever he was going out, it looked as if Sir Alex done that with most players. I mean, the couple of players that I can remember, especially, is Wayne Rooney, that he let it run with. And I remember it was all over the newspapers that he was going to Manchester City with Carlos Tevez, around about that kind of time. And Paul Pogba, a young player, thinks he's bigger than the club. I don't know how Ole can stand him anymore. I think that
this is a bigger conversation, but sorry, Robbie, just reflecting on the Rooney thing. We've got to remember that when Wayne Rooney put in his transfer request, he put in that transfer request because he didn't think Manchester United were being ambitious enough. That's why he put in that transfer request, because the transfer window showed. Look at where we are now and look at what Pogba's saying. I think the only thing that we can see dissimilar between the two is that Rooney and the club were proactive in actually saying Pogba's reason for, whereas Pogba just comes out and flirts. He comes out and says little snippets, which are disrespectful to fans who pay to see him play, disrespectful to his club, and disrespectful to his dressing room. Now, whether the dressing room and in football they're starting to learn a bit to take this stuff with a pinch of salt, fair enough. If you go back to Roy Keane being in that dressing room with Paul Pogba, he probably walked out of that changing room on Thursday after seeing Roy Keane after the international break with a black eye, because that's just how football was back then. But football has changed a lot. Quotes are misinterpreted. Things are lost in translation. Who knows what he means by it? But we can only take it at face value. And that's that actually what Paul Pogba is saying during international breaks, no matter how much you want to put it into context, is becoming consistent. He uses the international breaks to say something consistently negative about United or him wanting a move away, which is the bigger worry. And history tells you that, not just this one incident that's happened recently, which, by the way, all I'll say on this most recent one, how ironic is it that every single journalist that reported this quote initially are now backtracking? You're telling me that isn't a coincidence? Come on. Yeah, that interview has probably threatened to be taken down, and this is how they're trying to save it.
Yeah, it
Don't
seems to be
believe
always
it.
the same journalists, and people keep believing them. They keep believing the way that they interpret Paul Pogba's speech, because I mean it happened in China as well. Whenever, I can't remember what he was exactly doing in China, but I can remember that I think it was last summer that he was out there and he's like, "Oh, I want to play with Real Madrid." That was not true. He says it would be like a dream, because I mean, let's be real. I mean, Real Madrid probably would be a dream. Is Paul Pogba
Of
going to go
course.
to Real Madrid? No, but I do believe that what Fabrizio Romano said, who, I mean, probably the most reliable journalist out there, that if the coronavirus pandemic didn't happen, he would have been at Juventus. And to be honest, would I have been sad at that period of time? Yes. But now that we've actually managed to go on to the next season and he's still struggling. I mean, I've even seen him struggle with France. I don't know if you watched the game. It was France versus Finland. He got walked over. He was so bad.
But he
Absolutely
was good
terrible.
against Portugal. And I actually think that
And
his
watched
game, how he played against Portugal, I think he was better. I think he was good. But this is the problem with Paul Pogba. We see a good performance and it makes us go, God, isn't Paul Pogba quality? Isn't he brilliant? Like, guys, that was a good performance. Like, we should be getting more from Paul Pogba. Paul Pogba is better than a good player. And
Yeah.
I don't think he's world class, but he's better than a good player. And I think these are the problems. And look, does his price tag play a point? I don't believe in that argument. At the end of the day, we spent 80 million on Paul Pogba, who we all believed at the time was a world-class signing for United, someone we could build teams around. Yes, I agree with the argument that Paul Pogba has probably never had a team built around him. But you tell me, has Paul Pogba shown the commitment, the audacity, and also, let's say, commitment, audacity, and consistency to warrant to have a team built around him? No, not for me. So I think that's what we're seeing now from Bruno Fernandes, and this is where this divide's coming in, Pogba v Fernandes, which is crap. Our football players are football players. We support them. We love our club. They need to give everything on the pitch. If we don't, we just need to hope we've got a manager who can make the tough decisions. And Ollie's been leaving Pogba out, so I think that speaks a thousand words, so to speak.
Yeah. So just to round it up, you do believe Pogba should leave?
I don't have a cap. What do you think?
No one knows.
No one knows. No, because Pogba can, as I've mentioned 101 times, Pogba can be a fantastic footballer. He just can be a fantastic footballer.
Yeah, but I just think, see if we've got a fantastic footballer who is on that amount of money a week and who costs that amount. Surely needs to perform every week. I mean, you look at Bruno Fernandes, and he
completely agree
every single week, and I'm just getting to a point now where I'm sick of it, and I would rather reinvest the money elsewhere.
I completely agree, but I think the problem we've got now is that our next investment, whether Pogba stays or goes, has to be a freaking brilliant defensive midfielder. Someone who can run the midfield, someone who can contribute to our spine of the team. And I think you'll see, as soon as we bring that player in, which we have lacked for 5-6 years, even since Carrick retired, we've lacked that player. You'll see, we'll sell Pogba, Pogba will go, and we'll sit here and we'll say, God, could you imagine how good we were if Paul Pogba was still in this team? That's the problem we've got. This is why I'm trying to say there's fractions within this midfield. There's fractions within this side. Paul Pogba's a problem. Don't get me wrong, because he's a player that shouldn't be sitting on the bench, and he's not going to be happy sitting on the bench. And if he wants to leave the club, yes. If Paul Pogba wants to leave Manchester United, yes, we should sell him. But if Paul Pogba actually wants to play for Manchester United, he wants to win trophies at Manchester United, and is hungry to do so, then no way should we sell Paul Pogba. But again, being the biggest hypocrite in the world, his performances, you are completely right, have not been good enough. However, we can still hold on to the fact that there is a fantastic footballer there. And if we do, when we do, get the best out of a Paul Pogba, it's easy. We win titles. We win trophies. That's the difficult situation we're in.
It absolutely fries my head, because it feels like we have this conversation every year. But anyway, we need to move on, and I'm sure we could talk about Paul Pogba for days. I mean, I know I could. I talked to my friends about him for days. We try and debate him, but you can never agree, and you also can't deny that he's a world class player. World
As
Cup,
fans, we're the biggest hypocrites in the world, Robbie. We
yeah,
really are, because we
definitely.
want to see our club. We want to see our club succeed, but we're also quick to jump on our club's back when something doesn't go the way we want it to go. We're the biggest hypocrites in the world, which is why I won't sit here and say Pogba should be sold. I won't. If Pogba wants to leave and he comes out with a statement tomorrow directly and goes, I want to leave Manchester United Football Club, then I'll be like, okay, you don't play for United again. Get out my club. But until that moment happens, we need the best footballers playing for Manchester United. And Paul Pogba is a fantastic footballer. He has shown it, but he doesn't consistently. That's what we need to get to the bottom of. Is it because of the players around him? Who knows? We just need to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah, I think that we're going to move on to actually another player who is in a really tough situation just now, and it's Donny van der Beek, and I do believe that is he getting unfairly treated? Possibly, but the thing that I am really trying my best to avoid is the Henrik Mkhitaryan situation that Jose Mourinho created, where he didn't get enough minutes, and whenever he did play, he played well, and then he moved on to a smaller team, and really that's his career over. So I'd like to know what you think about Donny van der Beek. Should he start? How should he play? What game should he play in? And do you agree with me about the possibility of the Henrik Mkhitaryan situation?
I worry about any player Manchester United signs because I don't know how it works behind the scenes. I'm baffled by how it works behind the scenes. I don't understand our recruitment process. I don't understand who's in charge of that. I don't understand what players Ollie wanted to sign and what players Ollie didn't want to sign. I don't understand what Ollie's best team is. I don't understand what he thinks his best formation is. There is so many questions when it comes to this team. What I do know is if you have a look at our midfield options, the balance is horrendous. We've just got awful balance in that midfield. We've got good players there and we've got some good players to pick from, but they can't play a system properly and they struggle. They really, really struggle. When we play the diamond, we don't have enough width and teams pick us apart that way. When we play with two holding midfielders, we don't have enough going forward in terms of midfielders who are able to dominate the midfield and play simple passes. When we have too much creativity in the midfield, we struggle defensively. The balance is just so poor within our midfield options. What I think with Van der Beek is, and I've got an opposing view on this, I think to his credit, Solskjaer's managed him really well. I'm really happy with the way Solskjaer's managed him, theoretically. Now, when I say that, I mean that we don't want to make the mistake we made with Fred. We don't want to make the mistakes we made with even a Di Maria. We don't want to make the mistakes we've made with other players coming into this club, into the Premier League, and from day one, either hitting the ground running and then finding a really tough patch of form that they can't get out of. Maybe Paul Pogba is a good example of that. Or point two, where they're a good young player, but they just cannot take to the league because they haven't been given the time to. Now, Donny van der Beek has played I think I saw a stat the other day that he has played something like 17% of minutes this season. I don't know how true that is because he's played 2 full games or near enough full games in the Cup. He's played a Champions League game and he's come on as a substitute 3 or 4 times. If you love football, you can see that Donny van der Beek's a fantastic footballer and he comes from an Ajax academy that is rich in fantastic footballing philosophy. You can see that with him. He's a fantastic player. Do I worry about his strength and his ability to run that midfield engine room? Yes, I do. Do I think that he can play as a defensive midfielder? No, I don't. Do I think that he can deputise for Bruno Fernandes? Yeah, I do. And if he was brought into the club, which I believe he was, to be an option to rotate Bruno Fernandes to make sure that we can keep him fit for the majority of the season, wow. How much better is Van der Beek than Jesse Lingard, by the way? Phenomenal option to have coming off the bench. Do I think that we've all been guilty of being reactionary to our start of the season, that we want to push Donny van der Beek before he can run, let's say? I know the saying is walk, but let's say run. Then, yeah, I think that is the case. I think Ollie's buying his time. I hope that McKenna, Carrick on the training ground, like Bruno's come out and said recently with him and Fred, is actually mentoring our midfielders, and Van der Beek is one of the midfielders he's mentoring, because Van der Beek and Carrick have a similar build. They come from a similar footballing philosophy. They play similar to each other. So if that work is going in on the training ground, I'm excited to see the future evolution of Van der Beek as a footballer. Because if you look at his statistics and you look at him at Ajax, he played the majority of his games as an 8, as a central midfielder, not a defensive midfielder, not an attacking midfielder, but a box-to-box midfielder. Do we play the formation? Is Ollie's favourite formation? Can we have a box-to-box midfielder in that team? No, we can't. It needs to be a Matic, a Fred, a McTominay shielding that back four, and then a Bruno, and then the two wingers with Martial up front or Cavani up front. So actually, I think, to Ollie's credit, he's actually managing Van der Beek quite well, and I think we're going to see him a lot more as games are coming thick and fast now. And I think that we will start to see him more regularly come the new year. I just think at the moment we're buying our time with him, so I'm quite patient with Van der Beek.
Yeah, I think that I need to agree with you. I was obviously just throwing that on the table, the fact about Mkhitaryan, and because it was high anticipation coming into Mkhitaryan's the deal. But then he obviously got moved on for Alexis Sanchez, which didn't go too well either. But talking about Van der Beek, I mean, you look at the actual the team built around him, definitely not. It's built around Bruno Fernandes. I think I have now came to my kind of senses, and the fact that I do agree with you that the fact that he won't get used as much as Bruno Fernandes, he won't get used as much as Pogba, but he will. I think he still should get more than whatever you said there. Was it 14% of minutes this season? I think that's a bit. I mean, I've seen Donny van der Beek come on at the 89th minute. Like, I don't know what Ole expects him to do in that time.
But Ollie's crap at making substitutions, Robbie. We know that. Like if we're going to give him a biggest criticism, he is so bad at changing a football match. He's
like,
so bad at it.
I would just expect him to bring him on like 60th minute. Mm-hmm. Imagine that you get a breath of fresh air whenever he's on the park. The way that he can move the ball about, get in the wee spaces and behind the striker, and he can play the ball from deep. I need to disagree with you on that. I think I have watched Ajax play before, quite a lot, especially in their Eredivisie. I know it's obviously not up to the standard that we watch in the Premier League, but he's very good with the ball at his feet. He can move it about, and he can also win the ball back. I think his strength. He's more like a.
Can I just hit on that quickly then? Can we just hit on that quickly? Just quickly hit on that. So my problem with Van der Beek isn't the fact that he can't play from deep. My problem with Van der Beek is you need to be really disciplined within the Premier League, playing within the system that Ollie plays with the two defensive midfielders. We've seen it with Fred and we've seen it with McTominay. They've both got a different element to their game. Scott's a little bit more physical. He can rough you about a bit more, and he is good at winning that ball back when he needs to and play up against physical midfielders. Yeah, very much so. And then you've got Fred, who's just a workhorse. He just runs and runs and runs and runs, and you know he can utilize his energy to move forward a little bit more when we need a bit more support in the attack and not do. Van der Beek isn't a pressing midfielder. He doesn't play on the press. He more blocks the pressing, the passing lines. And I think when it comes to playing that position as a 6 and a defensive midfielder in the Premier League, you've got to have a little bit more about you in terms of positionally, and a little bit more when it comes to your continuity as a midfielder. Because I don't think Van der Beek himself, yes, if we have a look at his stats, he has a fantastic engine. But box-to-box midfielders have a fantastic engine because they're running to and fro the whole time. The problem we've got is we haven't got that centre-back partnership as of yet, which you can trust if it was a 3v2. We just don't, because our wing-backs get forward. Our right-back and left-back, Wan-Bissaka and Shaw, always get forward. So then we're left with potentially a McTominay or a Fred and Maguire and Lindelof. That's where you need a more disciplined midfielder to also be within that conundrum. Whereas Van der Beek tends to wander a bit. He gets forward a little bit more. He's brilliant in between the lines, by the way, finding space, which is where he needs to be. Within this system, Ollie doesn't trust that. He doesn't like that. Would I like to see Van der Beek experimented, playing a bit deeper? Yeah, I would do. But can I understand why he doesn't? Yeah, I understand why he doesn't. So I actually don't want to put that pressure on him. I don't want to just chuck him in there. He needs to be managed properly. And I think the way to manage him properly is by giving him time and teach him maybe where he needs to play. And I think maybe if that's what's happening, Robbie, like you said, if what you've just described to me there, if Van der Beek can do that, again, I don't watch much Dutch football, so I can't say can or can't. Right. So on the training ground, is he learning another element to his game so that he suits this formation that Ollie wants to play? So we get a Fred and Van der Beek midfield 2 with then Bruno Fernandes, because that's exciting. Fantastic. But we just don't know the answers to these questions. So at the moment, we've just got to trust the management in him.
Yeah, I would say that he would go more next to McTominay more than anything.
Yeah.
And Matic, for me, I think Matic is done. I think he can only play, let's say, 1 game a month now, by the looks at it. It looks as if he's got no energy left, to be honest, whenever he's on the park. But yeah, it's just, I think that obviously McTominay, I've been watching international break. Had a week-long hangover about Scotland qualifying for the Euros. I still can't get over it. Me and my pals.
Are you still drunk now?
Sorry?
Are you still drunk now?
Yeah, I've had a bit. No, but
I blame you.
Yeah, me and my friends we booked to go to London for Scotland England, and you'll see McTominay in a much deeper role. You'll see McTominay in a back five, and on the right hand side where he's been absolutely sensational, in a Scotland team where we really haven't conceded, apart from the 90th minute equaliser against Serbia to put us through. I was on the edge of my seat, nearly crying and throwing things about the house, but we got there anyway, and he scored an absolute wonder penalty. It was very good. But anyway, I'm going off here. I can't stop talking about it. I talk about it in every podcast.
It's good to hear because I haven't watched any international. I'm really not. I don't like international football.
Yeah, so
I just can't get into it. But it's good to hear that. It's good to hear that.
Yeah, so me and one other host, Cam Lowe, a Canadian host, we talk all things the international week, and we previously, if you guys haven't watched it, we brought out a roundup of the first games where I tried my best to not talk about Scotland as much, but it was so hard, obviously. But yeah,
it's so bad though. I only watched the Portugal France game this international break. I haven't watched anything else. The only reason why I watched that was because I was doing some work and I saw randomly on Twitter a stream popped up of it. I know. I'm so sorry. That's their fault for streaming it, by the way, on Twitter. Yeah. And I just hit it and I just didn't turn it off. And literally, so it was there in the corner. It was like the last 5 minutes of the game. And I just caught it and I thought it was all right. It was a good.
We're obviously going to come back and we'll bring out the next episode of the international roundup towards the end of the week. That'll be uploaded on YouTube, probably not live, but you'll obviously hear our views about the final results of the Nations League. But yeah, anyway, going back to the questions that I want to ask you, I'm going to just ask you quite a wee quick question as well that's on my mind, and it's the fact that I know we haven't had many standout performers, but if you had to choose one player this season, who would it be and why? Because for me, I'll tell you who I think first.
Yeah, go for it.
I think that I changed my mind.
No, go on, say it.
You know what? I was going to say Rashford, because the way Rashford can transfer things off the field to on the field, I think it's amazing. Personally, I think he'll be a Manchester United legend. And I think he hasn't provided the numbers that everyone is expected this year, along with Martial. But he's still there. He's still in and about. And I really hope to see him excel throughout the season. I know the name's possibly on everyone else's mouth. It will probably be Bruno Fernandes. Even I'd go as far to say Harry Maguire this year, apart from the Spurs game. I think he's been.
Do you know what? Good. Do you know what? The first player that came to mind for me, but then I feel like I'm slightly biased with Harry Maguire because I love the bloke. I think he's brilliant. I think he gets so much, taking the Greece situation away, I think he gets so much criticism. I think he's a fantastic defender. And I think he is the leader this club has been calling out for ages. I think he's fantastic. And I just go back to reports of when he first came into the club and he sort of, so to speak, took over the dressing room and brought some camaraderie about the squad. And we went through a fantastic patch whilst he was doing that. And even when shit hit the fan last November, he was trying to bring that group back together. And I think only now we don't hear about these things and see and hear more about the fantastic leader he is because of COVID. It's just closed everyone's doors. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes on anything. So I was going to say Harry Maguire mainly because of the poor defensive start to the season we had. And I don't think since the last international break, he has put a foot wrong. I think he has been brilliant and he has been a rock. And if you look at the difference in this side, the way we play and also defensively, we're a world above where we were in the first 3 games of the season. We really, really are. So I think improvements are being made and now we have to hit the ground running. But I'm going to say someone different. And the reason why I'm going to say someone different is because when we started the season, I was calling for us to sign basically anyone to take his place. Go on.
Luke Shaw.
Yeah, Luke Shaw. And the reason why I'm going to say Luke Shaw is because of the fraction within the fan base when it comes to Luke Shaw. I'm not his biggest fan. Don't think we win trophies with Luke Shaw as a left back. Think he's good. Better backup option than Brandon Williams potentially is as a left back, but Brandon Williams is very young. He needs some more football, and I think potentially Brandon Williams is better on the right anyway. But anyway, that's another conversation. Yeah. I don't personally believe Alex Telles is a world beater compared to Luke Shaw. I think they're on a similar level. My call was I actually want someone like Luca Digne. I think he's a fantastic left back. I think I want someone who can actually, grab the game by the scruff of its neck at left back, because we've got a right back who's developing in Wan-Bissaka. I don't want an average left flank. You've got Rashford who needs the defensive support. You need a solid defensive left back who can also get forward. So you need an all-rounder there. And I think that is what a player like Digne is. I think that's a player like, let's say, even an Alaba. You can throw, players like that around. I think Luke Shaw on his day can be good. He can be a good footballer. He can be good defensively. He can be good when going forward. My question with Luke Shaw has always been, does he live the lifestyle? Is he ever fit enough to make it through a season? Because that leg break just completely ended him.
I feel as if he's always injured, and that is my main reason why I wouldn't say he has been one of the best players since the start of the season. And
this season he's not been injured. He's played nearly every game. He has played the most games this season for United. He spent the most minutes on the pitch for United this season, Luke Shaw.
Yeah, well, it's just there's another injury just now as well, and that will sideline for a while. And
yeah, no, and I won't disagree. But up to this point, I actually think Alex Telles coming in has pushed him to play better. Yeah. And I think if we have a look at him, if we're going to actually judge this on improvements made from last season and who stood out for me, I think Luke Shaw has been better than he was last season already this season. I think in his last 2 games, he has provided 2 assists, which I'm sat here like, oh my God, yes, Luke Shaw assisted a couple of goals. He should be doing that regularly anyway. I get that. But you can't knock the fact that he's gone and done it. So for me, I'm happier with Luke Shaw and how he's been since Telles come in. Would I still like to see Telles have a run in the side? Yes, I would. Although I do crap myself about Alex Telles defensively. Not seen enough of him.
I think he is still good defensively, mate. Like I think
I don't watch any Portuguese football. I'm literally just commenting on what I've seen online, just the snippets and the bits and pieces from other people who do watch Portuguese football.
So I have watched Alex Telles, especially in the Europa League side, when he was playing, I think it was Celtic or Rangers. I spoke about this previously, and he was pretty sensational defensively as well. I think a lot of people need to realise the fact that he used to take Porto's penalties, which got his goal ratio up, and his crossing sensational. But see, his main job, let's be real, he's defending. I think it's really good, and I don't think we'll see any issues. Correct me if I'm wrong, and you can tweet me and you can slag me if he scores an own goal or lets the ball roll through his legs against West Brom at the weekend, but I don't think it will happen. I think he's very strong defensive.
Again, I can't argue against that. The only thing I would say with Alex Telles, and I suppose, we have a look at stats. You can only sort of get an overview on game after game and consistency when it comes to a player like Alex Telles. And there's been times with the Brazilian cap, I've spoken to a couple of South American journalists who their worry, and the reason why potentially he isn't playing week in, week out for Brazil is because they worry about him defensively. That Brazil defence is quite weak anyway. So they need stronger defensive fullbacks. But then I would also say, and the only side, I don't disagree with you here, but and that's how I want my right back and left back to be. I want them to focus on their defensive work more than their attacking work. But I think this is where we're seeing the game evolutionise and the game change slightly. I actually think now fullback's main job is to support the attack more than it is to support the defence. And it's a weird world we're living in where that is the case. maybe reverting back to that, maybe now a left back's main job isn't just to defend. Maybe it's now to defend and attack, and it's all molded into one. So I think it's really difficult when you're selecting. And we've had the same conversations about Wan-Bissaka, right, mate? Like, people are so quick to jump on Wan-Bissaka's back about him attacking and him not being the best attacking fullback. Well, scrap that. He's the best defensive fullback in Europe. Just look at his stats. He's phenomenal. So I think, I think we're always quick to, and maybe I'm quick to criticise a player who I haven't seen enough of and have a worry about them. I mean, it's fair enough to have a worry. As you said, people can come at me once we actually see that he's a fantastic defensive fullback. That is fair enough. But until we actually watch a player consistently and see them, so to speak, evolve in a position, we actually never know. So, yeah, I think it's going to be interesting watching him. But I think he needs a run of games. That's what's important.
Yeah, I think he will obviously get the run of games over this time. But I've got a comment here, and it says, and it's from Hello World _91, and he's not only out, but this modern football United need to start defending from the front format.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about that? The whole defending from the front.
It's a pressing game, isn't it? This is what it is. It's a pressing game, and I think actually, if you look at the teams who risk and reward the most, it's Liverpool and City, and there's no surprise that they're at the top of the league. Although we have also got to hit on in games where they have really utilised that pressing block and tried to really go over the top with it. Look at Villa. Look at the Villa game. Look at the Leicester game. They got completely snapped in half, Liverpool City, in both those games, and that's an argument against this whole, risk the fullbacks and push forward. I don't think
Pogba could do it. Matic on the park, no. Fred,
but we've never been a pressing team, Robbie, have we? We've never been a pressing team. Never ever. Even under Sir Alex Ferguson, we used to feel our way into games, and this is why I've never been worried when for the first 20 minutes United are non-existent, because United have always been that way. If you go back to some of the best games we've had under Sir Alex, we fill teams out for the first 20 minutes, but then it's about having players and leaders on the pitch who can then adapt the game plan, who can then have a look and use their IQ to find those gaps and be able to exploit teams. Throw everything at us for the first 20 minutes, we'll throw everything at you for the last 70 minutes. I mean, that's not a bad thing to do. I just feel like, on that comment alone, I agree with you, we don't have the players to be able to defend from the front. We're poor in the press. We don't do it as a team. That's the problem.
Yeah, so thanks guys for getting involved anyway. It doesn't seem to come up on the on StreamYard, which I'm surprised about. This is obviously our first time doing it, so we've got a few issues going forward. One of our editors are just sending over me like the messages. I'm just picking them out. But yeah, we're going to just move on to the next point that I'd like to ask you about, and it's basically just your raw opinions on Mason Greenwood at the moment, because I mean, and I'm also talking about England duty as well, which I think they've been very harsh on him. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's quite a young guy. He's pretty much the same age as me. And look at me, I'm sitting making United videos, and he's away playing for United on all thousands of pounds a week. But anyway, he's going to make mistakes along the way, and I think the media, especially whenever his close friend died, which was an absolute tragedy whenever he obviously didn't make it in the Manchester City first team. I think the media really need to lay off him, personally. And I'd obviously like to hear about your views on it, going back from the very start, because there's been a lot about Mason Greenwood recently, and I think now, finally, the media are starting to back off, because a lot of huge United accounts and a lot of big media outlets are finally backing Mason Greenwood and thinking, what about this guy's mental health going forward? Mm-hmm. Compared to the fact that, I mean, he's just a young guy. People need to remember that.
It's tough for me because, again, like whenever I go to answer a question, I can answer it 101 different ways because I have 101 different thoughts that come up in my mind. I want to answer it. So I'm going to steer away from commenting on the way that the media have handled this and more focus on Greenwood himself. And I can't deny the fact that I've spoken to a few journalists, and I don't want to say sources because they're not, and they've been on the All for United channel, by the way. A few journalists who are quite close to United camp, and they have had conversations with Greenwood about his discipline, and they've had conversations with Greenwood about his timekeeping. They're facts. Like that has, as far as they're concerned, that has happened. And I think on the one show that I spoke to Jamie Jackson, I can say because Jamie Jackson said it out loud, he sees no reason as to why his United, the people that he knows within the United hierarchy or his United sources, however you want to build them up, the people that Jamie speaks to, why they would tell him that information for it not to be true. So there are clearly, or have, I'm not saying are, there have been problems with Mason Greenwood. Even if we go back to when he was with England and that whole situation happened, right? That's something that happened. That's a fact. It happened. Whatever. We move on. It happened. He then needs to obviously take responsibility and apologize. He did that. Let's move on now. The fact of the matter is because it's happened and then something else has happened, they're no longer isolated incidents. And they're occurring in their eyes, although they're not to us, potentially regularly. So he's put himself in a position where he's made himself bait for sensationalist media.
That is the point, that he's made himself the bait.
So I'm not saying that is a reason for us or for tabloids to jump on his back, but as I said then, unfortunately for him, he's made himself the bait. So let's not focus too much on the Sun shit, the Mirrors this, the blah blah blah, the tabloids are this isn't true, that isn't true. Let's not focus on that. Now let's focus on, well, how does Mason Greenwood handle this? Now there's a big history of footballers in the press, and it's not just young black footballers, by the way. I do agree though that recent times you have seen that there is a slight racial agenda steered potentially towards young black footballers. I will 100% agree with that. But if you look back in history, David Beckham, Paul Gascoigne, Wayne Rooney, for some reason, young English footballers, they do something, they get used to this bait, it gets sensationalized, and it sticks with them. And it never goes away. They become superstars. They don't just become footballers, they become superstars, they become idols. Now, he can go one or two ways here, Greenwood. He can take that on the chin and he can do his talking on the football pitch. Or he can completely lose his way and we never see the best Mason Greenwood. So I'm hoping it's going to be and it's going to be that first option, because I truly believe Mason Greenwood becomes a club hero. I truly believe Mason Greenwood breaks all goal scoring records, not just for club, for country as well. And he becomes, by the time he's 33, 34, 35, what we see Cristiano Ronaldo as now. I personally think Mason Greenwood, and you can speak to any football historian who have watched some of the best footballers play for Manchester United Football Club, and they will say Mason Greenwood is the most exciting talent they have seen in a very, very long time. Mason Greenwood has the potential to go down as a cult hero. He has the potential to go down as one of the greatest ever. He just needs to adapt to this new media, social media world, accept what's going to happen, focus on him, live the footballing life, really adapt to the lifestyle and fulfill his potential. There's no reason why he can't still do that. Forget what everyone else is saying. Lock yourself away. Do what Ronaldo does and live and breathe football. If he does that, he becomes one of the greatest footballers to ever play for Manchester United because he's that good.
Yeah, I need to agree with you. And you also mentioned like Wayne Rooney and David Beckham, like they really got slaughtered in the media, like destroyed.
Mm-hmm.
But let's hope Mason Greenwood bags a granny as well, like Wayne Rooney. And
could you imagine the press?
Turns out to be the best goal scorer ever at United. I mean, imagine that one. But no, let's hope he manages to straighten out his path and has a great future for United, because as you said, and I do agree with your sources that you've heard, he hasn't been amazing just now. We know that. Does he deserve the slander in the media? And I stress this, no, absolutely no way. He's a young boy, and other players like Phil Foden, he's pretty much got away with it for free, which I don't get. But anyway, we're going to move on to the next point, which I always seem to come back and have this conversation, and the arguments went away, the Everton Avisa went away, and I'm sick of it, and I can't back the man enough, and he keeps doing it, and he keeps coming up clutch whenever it means, the most for him. And for me, this seems as if the players want to play for the main man, Ole. So what is your views on Ole, and really how serious is the pressure on him? Because I think it was building up, especially before the international break. But I mean, I don't want him to leave. I don't want, and it's not about nostalgia. I've hardly seen Ole Gunnar Solskjaer play. I mean, I'm 19. I've not really witnessed him. I have seen parts of him play. I mean, I've obviously seen them in the 99, but what's your views? Because I know it's obviously quite a tough one.
Yeah, it's difficult because I'm not Ollie in or Ollie out. At the moment, I believe with the fact that we're going through a transitional stage of the football club and where we're at the moment, I think you've got to be a realist a little bit. And you've got to see where we're at. And I think seeing as we're going through a transitional period, you've just got to comment game to game. We're going game to game at the moment. We can set targets at the start of the season and live in a make-believe world and hope that Manchester United can win trophies and titles. But then, it just hits home. Palace hit home. I mean, Spurs hit home. We're not there yet. And I think we're going through a bit of a weird patch where we as fans are being quite reactionary to every individual moment or every individual thing that happens, and we're happy to point that out. And don't get me wrong, everyone's more than sound to have their view. Feel free, go shout it from the rooftops. That's what Twitter's for. Twitter's to have an opinion. If we all had the same opinion, how boring would football be? It would be so boring. That's the whole point. It's the pub method. We can have conversations with 8 different people and get 8 different opinions on different topics. It's fantastic. For me, with Ollie, I'm not Ollie out or Ollie in. If you take me back to when he was made manager, I would rather that the club has stuck to their word at that point and actually went through a proper process to identify a manager and a structure and a build for the club that suits them moving forward, instead of going, results are all right, you just won at PSG, let's make you the manager. I just don't think that was handled particularly well by the club, but I back him. Then we went on an awful run of form. Our consistency's been really poor. How much is that down to the manager? How much is that down to the fact we're in transition? How much is that down to the board not giving him his targets? Like, there's so many excuses that could be made for and against Ollie that I'm just not willing to entertain it. So for me, for as long as he's managed this football club, I'll back him. If he does something wrong, I'll criticise him for it, because I can only criticise from what I see on the pitch. It's the same with the Paul Pogba stuff, really. If he has a fantastic game, I'll stand up and say, Paul Pogba was my man of the match. He was fantastic today. How do we kick on from here? And I'll do the same with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. But if you're asking my opinion, are we getting the most out of the players that we've got at the moment? If we are, our squad is not as good as we maybe think it is, which is really, as a football fan, I'm not saying it's depressing in terms of life. There's a load of things more depressing in life than football, but it's quite depressing as a football fan, as a fan of our football club, if that is the case. If you're asking me, we're not getting the most out of the players that we've got at the moment, and we're not making any strides in the way that we're playing, the identity of the club, how we're looking to transition moving forward, and we're not anywhere closer to getting out of this transitional stage, then I'll say I'm not happy with what Ollie is doing at the moment. But then again, it comes back to it, mate. If Ollie was to go, do I think we'd do any better under Pochettino? I don't know. Will we do any better under Allegri? I don't know. Would we do any better under Nagelsmann? I don't know. For me, I just love I can't wait for this international break to be over. I love watching my club, whoever the manager is. I'll support and back any manager of our football club, even if it's Sam frickin' Allardyce. I don't care. I'll back them because I love watching my team play. But the bottom line is that there needs to be a plan. The plan should not be with the manager. The plan should be higher up than that. So where are we in that phase of getting out this stupid transition that we're in and challenging for titles? Is Ollie the man to take us out of that? I've not seen enough to say that he is, but right now, am I ready for us to jump ship with Ollie? No, I still want him to succeed, and I still back him to succeed. So we're very early at the moment for me to say whether he should go or not.
I need to say that I think you've went about that quite well, because you've not always went into one side of the argument. I'm definitely Ole in. I think that the one and only man for the long term that I do believe could replace Ole as Julian Nagelsmann, but at the moment I don't think we've seen enough.
Ollie just battered him, mate.
What a game that was. Great performance. But no, I think overall he is a fantastic manager. But yeah, I mean, I've not seen enough negatives from Ole. I think his signings have been good. I think his overall style of play is good as well. But as we say, going back to that point, his substitutions are absolutely terrible.
Can I just pitch in now? Sorry, Robbie, on interrupting
Yeah,
you. I'm really good at doing that. I just want to say that actually I would agree, but also agree to disagree in terms of that I have seen enough negatives with Ollie as a manager. But then I'm also receptive enough to turn around and say that he is still learning. And some of the positives that he's bringing towards the football club outweigh some of the small niggling negatives as well. And I just think that we were appreciative last year when we reached the 3 semi-finals to say, well, the mistakes he made in these semi-finals, he needs to learn from them and not make them again. So the fact that we lose the games that we did at the start of this season and we went on the run that we did, I think to then go Ollie out is ridiculous. We forget that we finished third last season and came to semi-finals in 3 decent competitions. Like I don't think that that's an achievement with where our squad was at one point last season. Think back to last November and January. Some of the runs we went on, I don't know how Ollie stayed in a job. The fact that he's managed to pull us out of where we were, that dark place where we were, to get to where we are at the moment, I think is a positive. So, yeah, I think the problem is, though, Robin, I don't know if you would agree with this. We've got so many games of football coming up. He said that it was going to take 6 to 8 games for us to get into our stride and for us to reach a point where we could start being properly competitive with the fact that how coronavirus hit us and where we were as a team and, you know, new players in the squad, etc. Fitness being a big part of that. Now is when the pressure starts, because if we do not hit the ground running after this international break, I think we've got 7 games before we play Leeds in like 4 weeks. It might be 6 games before we play Leeds in 4 weeks, which is mental, right? That Leeds, if we do not get decent results on the board up to then, which of one of the games is City, Paris Saint-Germain, Leipzig, we don't qualify for Champions League, that Leeds game defines, I think, Ollie's tenure. And we'll find out by that Leeds game whether Ollie can take this club forward or not. That is the one pressure I'll put on him. That's what I believe. So we'll wait and see.
Yeah, that'll be a good podcast that day then, if it gets to the Leeds game, and we're obviously sitting here in this situation and we're debating whether he should stay or whether he should go. But anyway, guys, it's been great. Thanks for everyone that is tuned in. Obviously, it's been a new format. We've been live on Twitter. Thanks, guys, for the retweets, likes, comments. And obviously, thanks, Ben, for coming on. It's been great having you, mate.
Cheers, mate. This has been good fun. Hopefully, you've enjoyed it. Sorry for butting in and for talking for ages. I'm good at talking. It's sort of is why I've got the career.
I'm quite good at talking as well. So I'll let you do it, mate.
Mate, we'll have to do it again. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much.